From the previous activity, you already learned about the essential parts of the breathing system as well as its function. Now on this module about the lesson 2 on lungs, now you will understand the mechanism and the activity of the lungs and the diaphragm. Welcome to part 2 of our module number 1. In part 2, we'll now discuss the lesson 2, which is about the lungs at work. Okay, so have you ever been into a place which is too crowded? Yung sobrang daming tao, halos siksikan. Siguro usually nangyayari siya kapag may mga fiesta, kapag may perya. Di ba kapag sa perya sa gabi, siksikan ng tao, halos wala nang malakadan. So ang tendency mo, ang sikip-sikip naman, parang mas gusto mo pumunta sa mas maluwag. So that kind of feeling is analogous to what is happening to our lungs. When we do inhale, kapag nag-inhale tayo, meaning to say, the air outside is too crowded. And if it is too crowded, the tendency of this air is to go into a place where there is fewer molecules. Yung mas makakagalaw siya ng maluwag. Wherein, when we inhale, yung air na pumasok sa lungs natin has fewer molecules. So, mapupuno ngayon ng air yung lungs natin. So, once that our lungs now is too crowded, kapag yung lungs naman natin ang masyadong masikip, the tendency is to exhale the air, or that is now the process of exhalation. Okay, for part 2, lesson number 2, which is lungs at work, the activity that we will accomplish on this activity is entitled bottled balloons. The objective of this activity is we have to explain how the lungs work and describe how the movement of the diaphragm helps the air go in and out of the lungs. Now, in this activity, you are to make your own model. But if you cannot make it at home, I have prepared a video that will show and explain how these lungs work. Let us all watch this video.
Thanks, Lucy.
Your diaphragm is the main muscle you use when you breathe, which is something we all do all the time.
Now, to show you what a diaphragm looks like, we've got a real one from a pig. Now, this is the pig's voice box. This is the trachea, or the windpipe. These bits are the lungs, and then underneath the lungs, in a big muscular sheet, that is the diaphragm.
You breathe in and out about 20 to 30,000 times a day, and it's this, the diaphragm, that makes it all happen.
So after your heart, it's the most important muscle in your body because it allows you to breathe. Now take a breath. Most people have no idea why the air moves into their lungs. Well, we're going to show you. Take this away, Chris. I've got a model. Now, the big bottle is your rib cage, and these things inside represent your lungs.
Those aren't lungs, those are my party balloons.
We're using them for a very important scientific demonstration.
Okay, well, I suppose if it's in the service of science.
Good. And this at the bottom is your diaphragm. Now, we tend to think that breathing is all about the lungs, but the diaphragm is the unsung hero of breathing. It's what makes it all happen, and that's why the diaphragm is such an important muscle.
Now, when you breathe in, the diaphragm pulls downwards. This lowers the pressure inside this chest cavity. This creates extra space, a vacuum, and air has no option but to rush in through your mouth and into your lungs to fill this space.
And then you breathe out again. Your lungs really are a bit like these balloons. They have no muscles at all. They're just like bags, really, and they don't do anything without the diaphragm.
It's pretty amazing. And to show you what your diaphragm looks like in action inside your body, here's mine. These big black areas are my lungs,
Or party balloons.
the pulsating bit in the middle is my heart, and down at the bottom, this is my diaphragm. Now, what you can see is my diaphragm here is contracted, and now it's relaxing, and as it relaxes, it rises up and forces air out of my lungs. As you then breathe in, the diaphragm contracts again, and just like the pink balloons, the lungs fill with air.
That is incredible.
So
the activity bottled balloons will clearly help us understand more about how the lungs work together with the diaphragm. Let us try to breathe in and breathe out. breathe in. As you observe, parang lumiliit yung tiyan mo. And then breathe out. Parang balik sa dati. Di ba kapag sa picture, kapag gusto nating medyo sexy, payat tayo sa picture, hingang malalim, pigil-pigil ng paghinga. And then, pagtapos na mag-picture, ay, sarap. Yan. So, that kind of situation is the way how our diaphragm moves. Now, if we inhale, our diaphragm moves downward and it contracts. Di ba parang ang sikip-sikip ng pakiramdam when we inhale? But, when we exhale, our diaphragm relaxes also and move into its original place. So when we inhale, the diaphragm moves down while our ribs moves upward, which gives a lot of space. Nagbibigay siya ng mas malaking space so that our air will move in from the outside para yung in-inhale natin na air ay merong pupuntahan. And then, when we exhale, our diaphragm moves up or it goes to its original place and our ribs are now relaxed. Okay, so take note with activity number 2 about the bottled balloons. Take note that our diaphragm, when we inhale, the muscle of the diaphragm contracts. If it contracts, the diaphragm moves down and expands our chest cavity. Katulad ng ginawa natin kanina, when we inhale, parang lumaki yung dibdib natin. Pero, lumiit yung tiyan natin. Meaning to say, nag-move down si diaphragm, our chest moved up, and provides more space. If there is more space, then there will be less pressure. Sa kabaliktaran naman, when we exhale, the diaphragm goes back to its original place or it's moved up kasi bumaba siya kanina. So, tataas siya ngayon, babalik siya sa original place. Then, our chest cavity will go back to its also original size. Then, there will be a greater pressure. Okay, so what is the purpose of the diaphragm at the bottom of our lungs? The diaphragm is a powerful muscle which aids in respiration. And this is how the gaseous exchange is happening or takes place within the lungs together with the diaphragm. Now, this gaseous exchange that takes place in the lungs is also called as diffusion. This diffusion is referring to the exchange of gas of oxygen and carbon dioxide within the lungs, specifically in the site called alveoli. Now, let us take a look at a closer look of the alveoli, as also called tiny sacs or the tiny air sacs, where the site of exchange of gases happening within the lungs of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Each alveoli is surrounded by a capillaries. What is this capillaries? This capillaries is the tiny blood vessel or it's the smallest blood vessel where diffusion is occurring. Capillaries is the smallest blood vessel is where the oxygen and the carbon dioxide do exchange. As we can see on the image, we have the red one and the blue one, which is representing for the oxygenated blood and the deoxygenated blood. The deoxygenated blood is the one that's carrying the carbon dioxide, and the oxygenated blood is the blood that carries the oxygen in the blood. The oxygen, which is needed by every part of the body, will be delivered by the blood to every cell of the body, while the carbon dioxide is diffuses out of the blood. So let us have the flow of the blood that carries the oxygen and the flow of the blood that carries the carbon dioxide. Let's have first the blood that carries the oxygen. The blood move into the capillaries, and then capillaries will pick up the oxygen, and this oxygen will be delivered to the every cell, while the blood will pick up the carbon dioxide from the cell and then return to alveoli in order for us to exhale. So for the part 2 of this session, we're able to understand how does the lungs work together with the diaphragm and explain it using a bottled balloons as a representation. From the lesson 1 and lesson 2 of module number 1, I do hope that you really understand the topics, and I do hope that you have learned something in these videos from part 1 and part 2 about the human breathing system.